Hey everybody, wanted to give you a quick video on the Glasgow Coma Scale. I didn't teach this to you guys in class. I think you guys had math for it. So I wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we all are familiar with the scale. The Glasgow Coma Scale is used to assess the neurological function of your patient, and it was developed by Dr. Graham Teasdale and Dr. Brian Jinnett at the University of Glasgow, of all places, the Glasgow Coma Scale. And it's made to assess the neurological function of your patient in a number format. This is very important for us in the pre-hospital so that we can assign a patient a Glasgow Coma Scale, report that to a specific hospital, like a trauma receiving facility, and they have an idea of the acuity of the patient. So the Glasgow Coma Scale is broken down into three pieces. It's eyes, verbal, and motor. And eyes is a scale of 1 to 4, verbal is a scale of 1 to 5, and motor is a scale of 1 to 6. Using those three functions, we're going to get a score of anywhere between 3 and 15. So starting with eyes, let's work with a normal patient here, and we'll say I'm a normal patient. So my eyes are open, they are spontaneous. When you walk into the room and you're assessing your patient, you make yourself known, the patient looks at you, you can call their eyes spontaneous. That's going to get you a score of 4 right off the bat. So there's 4 out of 4 in the eyes. As far as verbal goes, you have to have some sort of back and forth conversation with your patient. So as you walk into the room, you make yourself known, they look at you, and they start conversing. Hi, I'm over here, I'm having difficulty breathing, whatever it is. As long as they're having oriented conversation with you, you're going to give them a 5. Okay, so there's a 4 on eyes, there's a 5 on verbal. We're already at 9. Going into motor, you have to have them follow a command. So let's say you give them something to do, like, can you squeeze my hands, like you're doing a neurological assessment. They squeeze your hands. Now they're able to follow that command. You're going to give them a 6 as far as motor goes. So you've got a 4, a 5, and a 6. You're at 15, or a Glasgow Coma Scale. That is perfect. Let's go into a Glasgow Coma Scale at the opposite side, and I will give you your patient, who is a pen. Your patient, as you walk in the door, does not open their eyes. That's going to get them a well, it's going to ask you to assess them further. So let's say you verbally ask them to open their eyes, they don't respond. You painfully rub or grab trapezius, and they do not open their eyes. So with no response to verbal or painful, we're going to give them a 1. We're going to make ourselves known. Sir, can you hear me? Ma'am, can you hear me? They don't respond to verbal. You do the same thing with painful response. They're not responding, and they're not making any noise whatsoever. They're going to get a 1 there as well. Motor, you ask them to move, they're not moving, and they're not moving in response to painful stimuli. That's going to get them another 1. So now we have a 1 for eye, verbal, and motor. A total score of 3 GCS. A GCS of 3 could be a dead body. It could be an inanimate object. It does not matter. It's a person who is not opening their eyes, they're not making any verbal, and they're not moving at all. So Glasgow Coma Scale of 3 is obviously a very serious patient who is not doing very well right now. Let's talk about some of the in-between ones. Let's say your patient does not open their eyes spontaneously as you walk in the room, but you make yourself known, you're like, sir, can you hear me? And they open their eyes. So they've moved from a 4 of Glasgow Coma Scale eyes into a 3. They've opened their eyes in response to voice. Going down one more, if they don't open their eyes in response to your voice and you go in for a painful assessment and you try and get a painful response from stimuli, you trapezius pinch and they open their eyes, they're kind of groggy, but if they open their eyes at all, they're going to get a 2. So eyes not open at all to any response would be a 1. Eyes responsible to painful stimuli is going to be a 2, and eyes responsive to verbal is going to be a 3, and eyes responsive spontaneously as you walk in the room are going to be a 4. So that's your eyes right there. Verbal, as we already said, making no noise whatsoever, even response to painful stimuli, is going to be a 1. Let's say they do make some noise. And the scale is going to call this incomprehensible sounds. Let's call incomprehensible sounds, they're just noises. These are noises. If they're making noises, we're going to give them a 2. If they're using words, but they're incoherent, like truck, tree, ouch, okay, we're going to call those incoherent words. And then we have above that confused and disoriented. This is where you're commonly going to find a mark off your scale. Someone is confused. So let's say you have a patient who's under the influence of alcohol, drugs, something like that. You're assessing them, and they have an obvious slurred speech, and you're asking them, do you know where you are and what happened, and things like that. And your patient is like, I woke up and my head hurts, and what are you doing here? Okay, they're confused. They might have repetitive questioning, but you're taking a point off there because they're confused or they're disoriented. And that's going to be your verbal out of 4. Like I said, I would be a 5, just like you assessed me earlier. So incomprehensible sounds going to get you a 2. Incoherent words, not stringing sentences together, is going to be a 3. Confused disorientation is going to be a 4. And then 5 is going to be oriented and acting appropriately, like any of us should. Moving down to motor, we said that not moving at all, even in response to painful stimuli, is going to be a 1. So a 2 is going to be extension to painful stimuli. And a 2 and a 3 are very close. One of them is extension, and one of them is flexion. So we have decerebrate and decorticate. Decerebrate is a type of posturing where their patient is going to be extending their arms. And if you guys can see, let me back up a little bit here. I'm extending my arms, so I am away from my core. This extension is some basic functions of the brain, and we're seeing this neurological assessment of where they are right now. So this is called decerebrate posturing. That's going to get them a 2. So if they're moving their body away from their core, they're going to get a 2. Now, if they are flexing towards their core, like this, or down towards the core, if they're flexing down towards their core, that's decorticate posturing, and that's going to get you a 3. So no movement at all, even in response to painful stimuli, is going to get you a 1. Decerebrate, or away from the core posturing, moving your body away from the core, your extremities away from the core, is going to get you a 2. And then moving your extremities toward the core is going to get you a 3. Then we have a 4, which is going to be flexion or withdrawal from painful stimuli. So let's say you are pinching my arm up here, my trapezius, and I am moving away. I'm groaning when I'm doing whatever. And I'm trying to escape that pain. If I have a withdrawal from that pain, then I'm going to give that person a 4. Now, if they are localizing to the pain, and let's say you're grabbing my shoulder again, and you're right here, and I'm going to come up here and I'm trying to pull you off, and I'm like, ugh, and I'm making a conscious effort to remove you and to localize that pain, you're going to give me a 5. Now, if I'm following commands and I'm responding to you, and you're telling me to squeeze or whatever you're doing, and I'm following those commands, I'm going to get a 6. So, again, the Glasgow Coma Scale. Eyes, verbal, motor, 4, 5, 6. You have to memorize these sections. That way, when you're reporting a finding to your base hospital physician or to anyone you're calling into, you can give them an accurate description of the patient's mental status in a number format. Very helpful for trauma triage criteria and for picking the correct hospital as well as possibly the correct transport. You guys are all studying here in Santa Barbara County, and we have a policy in place that if the patient's Glasgow Coma Scale is below 13, they need to go to a trauma triage facility. So they have to go to a Tier 2 or Tier 3 trauma hospital. It also is, depending on where you are in the county, you might have to fly your patient in a helicopter. So it's really, really helpful. It allows you to make quick patient decisions, like I said, on that number format. So eyes, verbal, motor, and then just look over those criteria for each one and feel pretty comfortable with that. Okay, that's all for me.